we need to make sure that those who are driving big rigs, semis, can understand the road signs, that they've been well trained, and that when they're pulled over by law enforcement, they're stopped by law enforcement, or there's a crash and law enforcement responds, they can effectively communicate what they have on their rig. There might be a history that they have to be able to communicate to law enforcement when they're pulled over or there's an accident. And if they can't do that, that creates a significant issue for the traveling public. And so this is step one. And again, we hope there'll be compliance in the next 30 days. If not, we'll take additional steps. With that, I do want to turn it over to our Chief Counsel from Motor Carriers, Jesse Ellison, to talk a little more about what our plan is and how we're going to move forward. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Before I explain the enforcement actions that FMCSA will take, I want to emphasize the two dates that you mentioned. May 20th is the date that the Secretary directed FMCSA to implement a new policy, and part of that policy included the assessment to determine whether a driver could meet the English language proficiency requirement. And by June 25th, when CVSA, the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, the alliance of the state partners, put the new out-of-service rule into effect, they shared that policy with the assessment as part of it with all of the state partners. And so all of the states have had this information since May 20th and at the latest since June 25th. Today, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration will be serving a notice of proposed determination of nonconformity to the states of California, Washington, and New Mexico. And this notice proposes a finding of noncompliance with the Motor Carrier Safety Assistance Program, commonly referred to as MCSAP, with the qualifying conditions. This notice, the MCSAP program is FMCSA's main formula grant program, and it provides financial assistance to states to reduce the number of severity of crashes and injuries and fatalities. MCSAP funding requires the states to adopt and enforce laws and regulations compatible with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, which includes the English language proficiency requirement. And let me just quote what that requirement is that the Secretary described just a minute ago. But commercial drivers must be able to read and speak the English language sufficiently to converse with the general public, to understand highway traffic signs and signals in the English language, to respond to official inquiries, and to make entries on reports and records. The states must enforce ELP requirements to maintain MCSAP funding. Even before the tragic accident in Florida, taking 3 lives, FMCSA reached out earlier this month to all of the state partners and asked a couple of questions. We were reviewing the enforcement data, and we wanted to know what your plan was, and if you did not have a plan, what actions you were taking to deprioritize your non-enforcement actions. And so we took that feedback and reviewed that in combination with the data that we were reviewing, and part of that data that I'll share with you right now. But those answers were critical in determining these notices to California and Washington and New Mexico because they didn't have a plan, or they hadn't communicated with us the steps that they would take to deprioritize what they weren't doing. What we found in determining California between the enforcement date of June 25th and August 21st, so through last week, was that California has done about 34 investigations where they actually cited a violation, and one of those involved the English language proficiency requirement. Very importantly, California inspected over 20 drivers who had previously been cited in other states for an English language proficiency violation. and were taken out of service. So what that means is subsequent to that violation, they drove again in California, and California did not honor that previous violation. In Washington, there have been, over that time period from June 25th to August 21st, about just over 5,000 inspections that resulted in a violation, 6 of which did have the ELP requirement, 2 of which were not properly done within the commercial zones. But like California, Washington had at least 4 drivers come into their state who had previously been cited for an ELP requirement violation and put out of service. And they did not respect and honor that previous violation. In New Mexico, over that same time period from June 25th to August 21st, New Mexico has provided 0 violations out of over about 5,000 inspections. And like Washington and California, drivers came into New Mexico, about at least 7 drivers who had previously been cited and put out of service for the English language proficiency requirement. And yet New Mexico, just like Washington and California, did not honor that previous violation and return them out of service. Just to underscore this point, if an out-of-service violation could be various citations, it could be breaks. No state officer is going to look at a previous citation of a brake violation in a state a month before they're doing their inspection and then just not inspect the brakes and just let that driver go on their way. And yet, all 3 of these states are doing that. And they're allowing people to be on the road that were taken off the road. So all 3 of these states will have 30 days from the notice that we send out today to respond to the agency and to provide a corrective plan. And after that 30 days, FMCSA will make a final determination of nonconformity and impose the appropriate sanctions that can be up to withholding all of the MCSAP funding. And as the Secretary said, that's just over, I think, $33 million in California, $10.5 million in Washington, and I think $7 million in New Mexico. We anticipate all of the states coming in compliance. We do not want to penalize the states. We want the states to comply and to enforce the English language proficiency requirement, which is directly related not only to the safety of the citizens of their states, but the citizens of all of the states around all of the United States with drivers driving into those states. And that covers the notices.
Wonderful. Just as a quick note, we have so many great people who work here at DOT. Jesse and I have worked arm in arm for the last 7 months together. You haven't met Jesse yet. You met him today, but this is the hard work and the dedication that our team puts in to make sure our rules and regulations are appropriate to keep people safe. I just want to, I'll take your questions in a moment, but again, we have drivers that were taken out of service because of English language proficiency. They go to one of these 3 states and they're pulled over again. So their records are run by law enforcement. Of course, that's what law enforcement does. And so law enforcement in those states sees this is a flashing light. Listen, this person, this driver was taken out of service in a different state because they couldn't speak English. And what do? Nothing. They turn them loose, put them back on the road. We've also asked for plans from these 3 states to which they have not provided them, which has indicated to us that there has not been a willingness to comply with this rule. And so this is phase 1. We do want compliance. We don't want to take away money from states, but we will take money away and we'll take additional steps that get progressively more difficult for these states. There's a lot of great tools that we have here that we don't want to use. We just want to keep drivers safe, not in just red states. Americans drive in all states. And California, Washington, and New Mexico Americans drive in, and they deserve to be safe in those states like in every other state. So with that, I will take a couple of your questions. Yes.
I'm Pavanachari with Politico. You referenced that this announcement is phase one. What are issues that you would like to take to see this forward?
So this is the only phase I want to take. And we're giving 30 days for compliance because I don't want to take away their money. I don't. I want them to get these resources. But if not, this will be phase one. I'm not going to lay out all of the phases that we have, tools that we have to garner compliance, but we have wonderful tools that will make it very challenging for states to do business if they don't comply.
And I have a follow-up. So 19 states in the District of Columbia currently don't consider immigration status when issuing commercial driver's licenses. Is DOT looking into ways to make those states consider immigration status when issuing commercial driver licenses, and if so, how?
So again, Jesse, you might have a different answer, or we'll supplement mine. We need congressional assistance on this, but of course, I do think we should be a U.S. citizen or be legally in this country if you're going to drive. We have a number of other issues that we deal with our partners to the north and to the south that we are trying to unpack and make sure our laws are complied with. As I've found out now very quickly from Jesse, this gets very complicated very quickly. But we are putting every asset in place to make sure that we get compliance and get anyone who drives in America to follow the law. Jesse, do you have a...
I would just add that the rules are very clear on what's required of issuing a CDL and a non-domiciled CDL. And those requirements are a very important part of the national audit that we're doing with the issuance of those licenses.
Yes.
Where are you at with the audit? What non-domiciled?
We're making progress, and we'll have some updates in the very near future. But we've done a number of states. We still have a lot of states to do, but we do, and we'll have an update in the very near future on that.
And then in some of my reporting, it's come to my attention that with the ELP, that can only be enforced by CVSA inspectors. That in states like Wyoming, I was listening to a hearing last week, they're trying to pass a state law because state policemen or sheriffs can't pull someone over for violation of an ELP, and it's happening. They're going in different areas that aren't in their states. Is that correct? Is that your understanding as well?
No, that's not correct. Both the federal enforcement and the states can enforce ELP violations and do. What's really important is that the CVSA, or the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, they are the ones who set the standards for the North American out-of-service criteria. And that's why it was significant for them to start that date of enforcement on June 25th. And so,
You don't have to be a federal inspector and do an inspection to pull them off the road. It can be a sheriff's.
yeah, most of our partners are state and local partners that are performing the ELP assessments. And just real quick, the assessment actually only is triggered when there's a challenge to communicate. It's not something that's just always done. But if there's a challenge in communication, then there's a two-step assessment process that is part of the policy that we issued and that CVSA incorporated into their guidance.
And one last question. Okay, so the violations of the out-of-service orders that you mentioned in the 3 states, do you know were those like non-domiciled, work visa CDLs, or
So those issues are separate issues. I do have an idea on some of those issues, but those are separate, the CDL and the visa and immigration. And so that we are addressing those issues, and in the future we'll have more to say about those. But right now we're sending out notices limited to English language proficiency, the English language proficiency requirement, and the nonconformity with that requirement.
Hi, Rebecca from UJ. My first question is, what methods of standardization are used for the ELP assessments, and then what's the methodology established?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so on May 20th, when the Secretary directed FMCSA to issue the guidance, that's when it was established. And so it's uniformity, there's a lot of attention paid to that. And so part of, and again, this is why I mentioned these two dates, is part of that guidance includes a two-step assessment to determine whether or not that requirement, 391.11B1, is met. So 391, Part 391 is all of the driver qualifications, and this is one of the ability to sufficiently converse in the four categories that I read. That sets the standard, and that's what the assessment follows on whether or not a driver can meet those four categories that are mentioned in the requirement itself. And so there's question and answers in our guidance portal that's available to companies to ensure compliance, but CVSA took the FMCSA policy in that assessment and used that exactly. And that's what most of the states are using today. And that's, does that answer your question?
That does. I'm curious if there's any enforcement mechanism to ensure that the methodology is applied sort of in a equal, standardized way across states.
So there are specific sets of the questions for both parts of the assessment, and so, but it is up to CVSA and the states to implement the policy. But there's absolutely enough emphasis on uniformity in their doing that.
Just and as we leave, just I'm going to make one last point. And this is something we're looking at and working on. When an individual comes in to take their test to become a commercial driver, and they do a skills test. Had my CDL for 30 years, I think. It's a process in which we all go through. And at that point, it would be clear that this driver doesn't understand all the road signs and doesn't speak the language. But miraculously, they're passing the skills test. That I think any common sense analysis would say, well, that doesn't make sense. How could that happen? And so just to note, for future reference, we are going to be looking at that as well. How are these tests being administered? And are they following the rules? And is there some gaming of the system that we have to address? I would just tell you all, stay tuned. We are going to, again, we have been on this before. You all were covering it. We are going to stay on it because, again, this is about keeping our American roads safe. And that we lost 3 people for no purpose, no reason, but for a driver who should not have been driving a big rig. That's unacceptable. And I do hope, it's my wish that these states understand the common sense nature of what we're doing and they comply and they become good partners. That would be my hope. And because this is again, this is not about politics, this is about doing the right thing by way of the American people and keeping individuals and families safe as we all use our roadways. So with that, thank you all for coming out, and stay tuned for more developments as we continue to push these common sense policies, not just at federal motor carriers, but also across all our modes here at DOT. Thank you.
All right, there you have Secretary for the Department of Transportation, Sean Duffy, as he was addressing CDL, commercial driver's license, requirements there, including English proficiency. Now, that is all connected, of course, to the situation with Harjinder Singh. He is the man who investigators say was in the country illegally, and according to the rules, Secretary Duffy says he should not have had a CDL license. Now, he is the man who is accused of causing that fatal crash on the Florida Turnpike a little more than a week ago, killing 3 people. 9:30 on the dot over on the East Coast, 6:30 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow. I want to remind you that coming up here any moment now, we do expect to hear from the Israeli government spokesperson David Mencer as he provides an update here on the situation unfolding there with the Gaza war. It looks like he is standing at the podium here. Let me pop up the audio just to see if they are doing a microphone check or if we can hear him.
their practice, okay? Good afternoon, everyone. Shalom, I'm David Mensa, Israeli government spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate in the Prime Minister's office here in Jerusalem. It's Tuesday, October 26th, day 690 that our hostages have been held since October 7th, since the atrocities on that date. Please put your questions in the chat of this Zoom, together with your name and outlet, and we'll take some of your questions at the very end of the brief. Remember to put your questions to me directly, to the picture of me directly, not to the group chat. First, let me today start with a restatement of Israel's... כן, טוב. אבל...
לא, בלי הסלייד אבל. אני מתחיל ככה פתוח?
לא, בטוח...
Like this, כאילו... It's open. Yeah, you see.
I see, כל הזמן. Yeah. In the beginning, I'd go, and the 5 principles adopted by the cabinet, okay?
It looks like they're actually doing a rehearsal before there is that news conference, just getting the microphone underway and all of that. So what we're going to do is step away for a quick 2-minute commercial break. But again, any moment now, we expect to hear from Israeli government spokesperson David Mencer addressing everything related to the Gaza war. Let's head to a quick 2-minute commercial break here, but a lot more news coming up in just a few. Stay with us.
I think I like sports now.
No way. The gecko was just spotted down the street.
I've always wanted to meet him. Ever since Geico's 24/7 emergency roadside service got us out of a jam.
Sounds like you got more than just savings, my dudes.
Sir, do we know you?
Oh, I'm just a stranger who loves friendly service and American football.
Okay. Something to drink?
Oh, yes, spot of tea be lovely. And a root beer with lots of ice.
You know, you kind of look like someone.
Get more than just savings. Get more with Geico.
My cousin Daryl.
Oh, he does look like Daryl.
In my line of work, people are always asking for favors. Just the other day, someone offered to buff my brass for a deal on a room. I said, thanks, I'm good. Then I told them about Hotels.com. Members save up to 20%. With that kind of discount, you could stay at a place with a killer spa. Get a manicure, clean up those mitts a little, eh? Hotels.com. Members save up to 20% at hundreds of thousands of hotels. How can I help?
There's still time for summer fun. It's the summer of zero at AutoNation Chevrolet. That means more savings now through Labor Day. Drive a new Silverado with 0% financing or $18,000 off. Go to AutoNation Chevrolet today.
Look, we're great with teeth. We're toothbrushes.
But we're not the best with tongues, cheeks, and everything in between.
We need backup. The clinically proven essential oils in Listerine clean every surface of your mouth.
For whole mouth health, Listerine. Wash your mouth.
Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 9:35 on the East Coast and 6:35 on the West Coast. We were waiting for the Israeli government briefing with David Mencer to get underway, but it looks as though we've lost the image there. Again, they were doing that dress rehearsal, so to speak, prior to the news conference. Not clear if we will get that image back, but we are keeping an eye on the situation there. Once we see it pop back up, we'll make sure to bring it to you here in full on Live Now from Fox. In the meantime, do want to get to some of the other big stories that we are following as we take a live look over the White House at this hour. President Trump making a major move against the Federal Reserve, now attempting to fire a Fed governor. The announcement came last night and is likely to trigger a major legal battle, and it may cause uncertainty for investors. Doug Luzader reporting from Washington.
We are likely to hear much more about this later this morning as the president holds a cabinet meeting, but this appears to be just the latest move in the president's ongoing battle with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve still under construction here in Washington, and now President Trump is tearing down part of its leadership, firing one of the board's governors, Lisa Cook, after the head of mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac accused her of mortgage fraud.
In Ms. Cook's case, it appears from what we can tell, to be blatant mortgage fraud.
Cook had been accused of claiming 2 primary residences in Michigan and Atlanta, a move some have used to get preferable interest rates. In a letter posted last night on Truth Social, President Trump fired her, writing, "The American people must be able to have full confidence in the honesty of the members entrusted with setting policy and overseeing the Federal Reserve."
I'd fire him.
This ramps up the president's ongoing battle with Fed Chairman Jerome Powell with his growing frustration over interest rates. Cook has responded, emailing a statement to the Associated Press. President Trump purported to fire me for cause when no cause exists under the law, and he has no authority to do so. I will not resign.